Blues and Beyond with Jim Carty, and I'm here with Ted Drozdowski. How you doing, Ted?
Hey, Jim, I'm doing great. How about you, man?
I'm doing wonderful. It's nice to hear from you.
You too. I'm looking forward to coming up there and seeing you.
Yeah, well, so you're coming to visit us. The big gig on this tour, it looks like the one at the Regent Theatre. What a lineup.
Yeah, that is, man. I'm really excited about it. You know, the last time we came up, we ended up selling out the upstairs at the House of Blues, and the promoter who did that show wanted to do another show. So here we are. We're trying to just kick it up a notch. And I love the Regent. It's just such a great theater. And, you know, Ronnie Earl has played there, and Mighty Sam, and John Mayall, and Yorma. So it's just great to be able to step on that stage.
Absolutely. All those great May Kramer benefits that I've been to and you've been to in there as well.
Yep.
You name it.
Exactly.
So who else is on this bill with you?
Well, Peter Parcek, obviously world-class guitar player from Boston.
No doubt.
The Berkeley Powerhouse Band, which, speaking of guitar players, features Brad Foucher on guitar.
Super.
Another well-known Boston blues guitar picker. And then the 10-Foot Polecats are opening the show, who are definitely one of my favorite Boston bands, and actually one of my favorite bands in the whole sort of underground blues scene right now. They came down to Tennessee and played the Muddy Roots Festival in September and had one of the biggest crowds at the festival. They just kicked butt down here.
Fantastic. Good deal.
Yeah, they have a great, North Mississippi Hill Country sound, and speaking of fancy pickers, there's Jim Chilson in that band too. So it's a pretty hot guitar night overall.
Yeah, I would say so. So what have you been up to lately? You've had this release that Robert Muggy featured you and your band Scissormen.
Yes, we actually, in fact, the last time we were in Boston, we did a show at the Museum of Fine Arts. But since then, my drummer Matt Snow and me, we've been kind of to most of the points of the Midwest. We've been up into Minnesota a couple of times, and down to Florida, and across over to Ohio, and up into Pennsylvania, and all the way up to New York City, although I didn't quite get to Boston that time. So we've been traveling a lot, zigzagging around. And now Robert Muggy and I are working on the co-DVD CD release of that set, which is going to be coming out on March 20th, 2012.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty psyched about that. We managed to get an indie record deal down here, and the artwork is being worked on right now. The DVD is mastered, the CD rather is mastered and ready to go. The DVD is going into final prep. So we should see what everything looks like in just about a month and a half or so and have some finished copies.
Now, for folks who aren't familiar with Scissormen or Ted Drozdowski, you mentioned the Mississippi Hill Country music, which is really the idiom in which Scissormen works. Can you describe what that really means if someone comes to the show, and who are the major proponents of that idiom? Because you were great friends with so many of them, and many of them are leaving us or have left us. But tell me all about it.
Well, it's a very hypnotic sound, and guitar-wise, it spends a lot of time living on one chord and droning. And in terms of the drums, it often has a very martial beat or kind of a dance beat that might have kind of a martial grid on the bottom. And that comes right off the boat from Mississippi. And until recently, the leading proponent of that kind of the music, was a Mississippi fife and drum band leader named Othar Turner, who died a few years back. And now his granddaughter Sharday is doing that. But that's a very interesting polyrhythmic drum-based group kind of thing. Now, if you kind of take guitars and put them on top of that, then you're talking about North Mississippi Hill Country Blues. And the thing that's different about North Mississippi Hill Country Blues and South Louisiana Blues, which is actually John Lee Hooker's stepdad who taught him how to play is from South Louisiana. So John Lee has this thing going on too, is in both of those areas, Africans, when they were compelled to come to America against their wishes, were at least allowed to keep their musical traditions, unlike in the Delta, where plantation owners were afraid that the drums were speaking of uprising,
Right.
Down in South Louisiana and up in North Mississippi, those African musical traditions were allowed to stay much more intact, and as a result, you have these kind of deeply rooted, very hypnotic, polyrhythmic, and entirely kind of rhythm-driven sounds of North Mississippi blues and South Louisiana blues, like John Lee Hooker learned from his daddy, stepdaddy.
Right, and when you listen to folks like Junior Kimbrough and guys like that, it is hypnotic, and there's something very primal about that one chord repetition and then breaking out of it at some point that's almost orgasmic.
Yeah, I mean, that music to me is like kind of about mud and sex. Like listening to Junior Kimbrough and Jesse Mansfield and R.L. Burnside, who, until they all passed away over the last decade, were kind of the leading proponents of that style. And it's just real simple, gutty, driving music. And, if you were down there and you listen to that stuff with a head full of moonshine or something else, too, it just really would hypnotize you and twist your brain around in all kinds of interesting ways. The first time I went to Junior Kimbrough's juke joint, which is probably back in 91 or 92, I think I just stood there for the first 40 minutes with my jaw open, gaping. And then I realized, I'm being a total idiot. I should, function. I should try to function as a human being.
Right.
Just standing there like a completely, just like a rock, letting this kind of thing unfurl in front of me and carry me away.
I'm sure you're not the first one to go in there with that dumbfounded look, though.
No, I'm pretty sure not. It's pretty funny when Buddy Guy recorded his album Sweet Tea. A lot of that was Junior Kimbrough songs, and he said that when the producer gave him that music to listen to, his first reaction was, "What in the hell kind of blues is that?"
Right. Well, it was Jimbo Mathis, right? Wasn't it?
Well, Jimbo played guitar on that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember that it's the guy who runs Sweet Tea Studios in Oxford, but I'm spaced on his name right now.
Yeah, I got you.
But Jimbo definitely played a second guitar with Buddy on that.
Yeah, that's right. I knew Jimbo
of course, then he growing up down there, that music comes second nature to him.
Sure does. From the Squirrel Nut Zippers, if folks don't know Jimbo, right?
Yep, and then he's got a bunch of solo records in more recent years where occasionally he really gets to the core of that North Mississippi sound. I love that stuff. For me, of course, it required some work getting to that point at all. I've been playing rock and kind of ersatz jazz and freeform textural improvised music before I went to Mississippi. All the time being a huge blues fan, but all the time not really feeling the right window had opened for me. Texas blues, as much as I love Stevie Ray and Albert Collins and Lightning Hopkins and all those guys, I felt like I love it, I connected with it, I felt it, but I just could not play it. I could not find my way inside as a musician.
Yeah.
But for some reason, almost instantly, I started to feel that window cracking open once I started to meet those guys and listen to what they were doing, to Junior and RL, especially, who was probably the person who encouraged me the most directly.
Well, and Big Jack Johnson could get in that hypnotic mode as well, but he was something slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, he was more of a classic Delta Chicago guy. Plus, he'd spent years playing with Loretta Lynn and had a much, much wider exposure. I mean, Junior pretty much just played a style of music that was handed down in the Kimbrough family. It's funny, Matthew Johnson, who's the guy who co-founded Fat Possum Records, he referred to Junior's sound as being like something that would be made by a blind cavefish.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, though. You think about, I love these regional artists. A couple of years ago, Keith Little sent me a record. Chismo Charles from Pittsburgh. I can go on and on about regional stars that I really... Texas Johnny Brown is another guy who's really unique, who I love. But there was no more isolated case than those folks like Otha Turner and the Burnsides and Junior Kimbrough in that hill country. They were really unto themselves.
Yeah, I mean, in the big world of blues, that whole thing is its own subgenre, and it's almost its own planet, And it was just so fascinating, and I loved it. It was just so amazing. And you probably got a chance to see some of those historic shows in Boston when the Fat Possum, Cambridge, when the Fat Possum Caravan would come through and play the Old House of Blues.
Sure did.
And those would just be absolutely amazing nights. And I remember the first time they came through, Teo Leasmeyer, who was a friend of ours, Teo was the booking guy there, hired Big Jack Johnson to open and then to play bass. So seeing Big Jack play bass with, R.L. Burnside was pretty much a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah, I mean, Big Jack was. He told me he was one of the first black artists to play the Grand Ole Opry, and he played the Opry with Tammy Wynette and Conway Twitty.
Yep, I believe him.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I don't think he was the first black artist, but he might have been, like, third, you know?
Yeah. There was a guy who was actually a regular on there at the beginning. His name was Emmett. I can't remember Emmett's last name.
Yeah.
But Emmett was a pivotal artist. He was the first African American on the Grand Ole Opry stage, and I'm sure that did not go over well with some of those crackers.
No, I don't think so. Well, I just can't wait to see you, and it's always a pleasure. Anything else we need to know before we cut you loose on the highway there?
Well, just two things I'd like to say. One is we're going to be bringing up and trying out a whole bunch of brand new songs up there for the first time, and a few that we're going to debut on stage. Matt and I have been chewing on a lot of material. You know, although we have this record coming out in March, we have a second record, a studio record that we're beginning to visit right now. We've got about 17 songs written and worked up, and we're going to try to hit 30 as a goal, and then go in and start cutting what we like the most. And then the other thing is that folks who buy special kind of reserved seating for this event in Arlington at the Regent will also be getting free copies of Scissormen's Blues Rules 2010 Live in Switzerland Christier CD.
Wow, what a bargain.
Fan club disc we put out late last year.
That's fantastic. I mean, what a bargain for folks to buy a ticket. So once again, that's November 17th, Arlington Regent Theatre. It's a 7 o'clock show, looks like.
Yep.
And, you know, to get a CD, and advance tickets are only $12, at the door $15. And if folks want to give them a call, 781-646-4849, or just go to their website. And, you know, not just Scissormen on the bill, but Peter Parcek, you said Brad Fauscher, and then also who else?
10-foot polecats.
10-foot polecats. Wow, what a night! And you know, when you're in town, Lord knows who's going to show up.